County Board of Supervisors to order, please. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing because following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have the reading of the notice, please.
An educational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors will be held at the Marathon County Courthouse, Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street in the city of Wausau at 7 p.m. on Thursday, June 17th, 2021, and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request all of the individuals put your electronic devices on silent or vibrate as to not interrupt the meeting. And we will proceed to roll call. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Beestrom.
Here.
Bizotto.
Here.
Boots. Book.
Here.
Butke. Christensen.
Here.
Seiler.
Here.
Conway.
Here.
Dickinson. Drabeck. Pfeifrick.
Here.
Gibbs.
Here.
Gonering.
Here.
Guild. Gums.
Here.
Harris. Jacobson.
Here.
Johnson. Krause. Lamont.
Here.
Leahy. Lowe.
Here.
Mask.
Here.
McEwen. Oberbeck.
Here.
Opal.
Here.
Robinson. Schley.
Here.
Seafelt. Soybert.
Here.
Van Cray.
Here.
Vol.
Here.
Zhang.
Here.
Boots. Leahy.
Here.
McEwen. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to welcome all of the visitors that we have with us this evening, including the viewing audience. And we will move on to item number 7, public comment. And no one had registered 5 minutes prior to, so there was no one to have public comment for or from. And so we'll move on to item number 8, education presentation and reports. Standing committee chairpersons or designees. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to give a couple of updates. First, from the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee. We are in the process of adopting a public engagement strategy for seeking input on how to allocate the money from the American Rescue Plan Act. And we intend to have a few meetings, one meeting with the joint meeting of the Eastern Towns Association on July 29th, and then we will have meetings in the Hatley area, the Edgar area, and in Wausau where we engage the public into how they think we should use those dollars, giving them an overview of it. But we're going to be asking questions: where have you seen the biggest economic impact because of the pandemic? What does the economic recovery look like to you? What should the county consider as we evaluate and consider programs to use these funds in light of the eligibility criteria? How do you think the county should invest the funds, and how would the proposed investments impact this community? So we'll be going out there with some educational information and then seeking input. We'll also be looking at trying to set up some opportunities for feedback through the web or our web page. So look forward. It'll start in July, and we hope to be done with the engagement process in August. And we're looking to collaborate with other entities, including local units of government, and we're getting more and more information every day on how those funds can be expended. And then if I could, then just shifting gears to the broadband task force and begging the indulgence of Chair Pfiffer from the Infrastructure Committee. The broadband task force will be meeting next Monday, and we've been, this last Monday we had a meeting with, we invited all the internet service providers in to discuss the upcoming Public Service Commission ARPA grant, and there's $100 million available statewide for grants, and in the past the most that we've had has been $24 million at any but in any cycle. There are some new requirements, such as they're looking for speeds of 100 megabytes up and down as a goal. You can go lower than that with the upload, but they're really driving broadband expansion into the fiber area on a long-term basis. But one of the meetings, we've had a number of meetings with individual internet service providers, and in fact one with, several of them have asked us for specific addresses of people that are having problem accessing the internet. So if you have specific residents where they don't have internet available, please forward that information to Jerry Klein or myself, preferably Jerry. He's sort of our conduit person. We need those addresses so we can, refute some of the areas where the FCC and the PSC think that we have service. Right now, if you have a person in a census tract that has service at 25.3, they are considered to be served, and that community is not unserved or underserved. And we need to refute that designation by having those specific addresses. So please reach out to your constituents that are having problems with access and speeds, and provide us with that information so we can then provide it. We are looking at partnering with any and all parties. The grants for this round are due July 27th. We have $177,000 remaining in the capital improvement budget for this year, and one of the authorized uses of the American Rescue Plan Act is for broadband expansion. We'll be looking at that, but there is a lot more interest than we've seen in the past, and we're very encouraged in potentially having some options available to us to expand services through the county.
Just a point of clarification, John. I think one of the requirements, to be considered underserved, if they have service of 25.3, they are considered served. So, even though that may not be high enough speed for children, multiple children to utilize for education and run a business, the clarity is that if you have 25.3, you're considered served, and so we can't use that address. So anybody that has anything below 25.3 is considered unserved for this purpose. So other standing committee chairpersons or designees? Okay, we will move on to item 9, review and discussion on Tuesday meeting agenda items. Under 9A proclamations, item 9A1, June is Dairy Month.
Whereas Marathon County is the largest county in the state of Wisconsin with an area of 1,584 square miles and 135,341 residents, it has a wide variety of industrial plants which manufacture more than 50 different products, including dairy products ranked as one of the most important. And whereas Marathon County is one of the leading dairy producing counties in the state of Wisconsin and the nation, currently the third in milk production in Wisconsin. And whereas farmers in Marathon County are promoters of the family farm and provide a good sense of dedication and work ethic for the youth of our county. And whereas, according to census and other statistical data analyzed by UW Extension, the dairy industry is responsible for 7,203 jobs in Marathon County. It is the largest part of county agriculture, contributing a total of $2.03 billion to the local economy annually. Therefore, be it resolved that the Marathon County Board of Supervisors salutes the dairy farmers and the dairy industry by declaring June 2021 Dairy Month in Marathon County.
Questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 9A2, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
Whereas, as our population lives longer and as our demographics shift, noting that every day 10,000 persons turn 65 in the U.S., which will continue for the next 20 years, we are presented with an opportunity and need to think about our collective needs and future as a nation. And whereas abuse and neglect of older adults is an ever-increasing problem in today's society that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries, whereas combating the abuse of older people will help improve their quality of life in our communities and will allow older persons to continue to live as independently as possible and contribute to the life and vibrancy of Marathon County, whereas in 2006, the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, in support of the United Nations International Plan of Action, proclaimed a day to recognize the significance of elder abuse as a public health and human rights issue. And whereas 2021 marks the 16th annual World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, its recognition will promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older adults. And whereas we are all responsible for building safer communities for our older adults and all citizens, and increasing awareness will assist in the prevention of elder abuse. Therefore, I, Kurt Gibbs, Chairman of the Board of Marathon County, do hereby proclaim June 15th, 2021 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Marathon County and encourage all of our communities to recognize and celebrate older adults and their ongoing contributions to the success and vitality of our country. And the date noticed in your packet is June 17th. That will be updated for Tuesday's meeting.
Questions, concerns, comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 9B, appointments. Item 9B1, Board of Adjustment.
Appointing Karen Peel, 1984 Vista Drive, Mosinee, for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2024. Carolyn Opitz, 115655 Riverside Road, Marshfield, to continue her term to expire June 30, 2023, by serving as a full member of the Board of Adjustment instead of an alternate member. And also designating Jim Servi to serve as first alternate instead of a full member of the Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Questions? Okay, moving on to item 9B2, North Central Regional Planning Commission.
Reappointing David Oberbeck, 110 South 36th Ave, Wausau, to the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission for a 2-year term to expire in April 2023.
Questions? Okay, item number 9B3, and this one is slated for action tonight, and a vote will be taken due to the broadband task force meeting Monday. We wanted to have board approval so that those 3 individuals could attend and vote. So we have the broadband task force. Again, action will be taken on this appointment on the June 17th, 2021 meeting.
Appointing Kurt Schoenrock, 160606 Town Line Road, Wausau, replacing Kent Olson. John Uding, 1212 Anchor Street, Wausau, replacing Emmett McBride. And Milton Olson, 164315 Town Line Road, Wausau, replacing Kat Becker. To the Marathon County Broadband Task Force to complete a 2-year term to coincide with the county board terms of office expiring at the organizational meeting in April 2022.
What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Robinson and seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Their resumes and/or their brief descriptions of interest and areas of interest and areas of expertise were included in the packet. I'll last one time. Any additional questions or concerns? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve and appoint the 3 members to the broadband task force signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? No? And the motion is carried. Thank you. And we will move on to item 9B4, County Board Rules Review Committee.
Appointing the following supervisors to serve on the County Board Rules Review Committee. Supervisor Craig McEwen as chair, Supervisor Sandy Seiler, Supervisor Brent Jacobson, Supervisor Jacob Longenhahn, Supervisor John Robinson, Supervisor Arnold Schley, and Supervisor Rick Seefelt.
Is there any questions, any comments, or any discussion? Supervisor Johnson, excuse me.
Wow. Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. Just a question about whether this task force is going to receive input from Corp Counsel on trying to at least maintain some semblance of compliance with Robert's rules just for consistency's sake. I think that would be very helpful going forward to, kind of keep it within the framework. And I guess I'm looking for an answer on whether or not that is a consideration going forward.
Corp Counsel will address the question.
So certainly, a member of Corporation Council has typically attended the Rules Review Committee meetings partially for that purpose, so I would intend to continue that.
Thank you.
Okay, other discussion?
Supervisor
Okay,
Bizotto.
item 9B5, Park Commission.
Appointing Kelly Zagrebski, 2880 West Wausau Ave, Wausau, to the Park Commission for a 7-year term to expire June 30, 2028.
Discussion. Okay, we will move on to item 9C, ordinances. 9C1, Town of Marathon rezone KPS Enterprises Ordinance 19-21. Discussion. Any discussion? Okay, moving on to 9C2, Town of McMillan rezone. Tim Freeland on behalf of Bernie Wenzel and Likes Green Acres, ordinance 20-21. Any discussion? Okay, moving on. Item 9C3, Town of Rib Falls rezone. Devin Klockseam on behalf of Todd and Lori Schmidt, ordinance 21-21. Discussion. Okay, moving on to item 9C4, amending section 2.05, parent 1, parent D, General Code of Ordinances to provide for Board of Health membership to track statutory language. Ordinance 22-21. Any discussion? Okay, item 9C5, amending section 2.01, parent 1, parent F of the Marathon County General Code of Ordinances to require in-person meeting attendance for the county board annual organized adjourned annual and adjourned organizational voters meetings, ordinance 23-21. Any discussion? Couple of points that were brought up that I think need to be at least discussed or possibly offered as amendments. It was brought to the executive committee's discussion or to their attention after the motion to was provided that we should look at allow or requiring everyone that if we're going to continue to have participation by WebEx or by remote, that in order to eliminate some of the challenges that we have as far as people being able to silence their, or put their phones on silence and not to have background noise, that we utilize WebEx exclusively. So in other words, if we're going to allow, continue to allow committee meetings and or the educational meeting as we have tonight, to allow remote users to participate, that we use WebEx and require that they have WebEx. And there is an option to download WebEx on an iPhone or an Android phone and utilize that WebEx rather than the iPad if they're having challenges with broadband. That was just one suggestion. And then there was another issue that had come up with WebEx and the utilization of remote in when we have closed sessions. And so the recommendation that I would suggest that would at least be debated is that if we're going to have a closed session language on any either committee meeting or full board meeting, that we require those meetings to be in person exclusively, because there has been challenges and unfortunate situations with closed session language and closed session, because when people are dropped by whatever reason for attending via remote, you have to unlock the meeting and re-allow people to come back in, and that just creates challenges. So I think those are two items that should be discussed in relation to the potential amendments that is being offered here. Discussion. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it makes a lot of sense to have closed sessions in person. I know it's not convenient for everybody, but if it's important enough to go into closed session, it's important enough to be here. It would be my opinion. And just another unrelated point, if we're going to continue with educational meetings being optional for in-person, what are the odds of moving the time up, since a lot of folks who have a long way to travel are attending via WebEx? Just something to look at, doesn't have to play into this, but it's just something I'd like you to have on your mind, that we could move the educational meeting up to 6 if folks aren't traveling an hour to get here and are able to log on, and have the same effect of having the meeting at 7. So, but I would support and make that motion if it is being sought to require in-person attendance for closed sessions.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any amendments offered tonight. Those will be
Gotcha.
taken on Tuesday. We're talking about debate tonight on the
Right.
proposed ordinance change.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After we discussed this at executive, I was a lot of the city council, city WASAs going back to in-person, the Village of Rock Trails went back to in-person. You know, as far as our standing committees, subcommittees, commissions, in this room, you could social distance as far as you want. So I would, maybe have a discussion about requiring the supervisors to come into their standing committee meetings, in person, because like I said, you can definitely, have your distancing from one another compared to when the 38 members are in here. So, like I said, that could be an option. Like I said, it's with the way the committees are going back, the 400 block is opening back up. People are going to be packing in there, and there's certainly a lot less risk. If you already had your shot by now, you're probably going to get it, or if you don't have it by now, unless there's some medical reason you didn't get it. But I just think that it's time to start slowly getting back to normal meetings. Thank you.
I got Supervisor Beestrom, and then next will be Supervisor Robinson. Supervisor Beestrom, you have the floor.
Okay, I just wanted to say I would agree with the chair on pretty much everything that has
Supervisor
been
Beestrom, I
said.
think you're still muted.
No, I unmuted myself here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear him.
Supervisor Beestrom, I still can't hear you.
I can hear him.
I can hear him.
Yeah, I unmuted myself.
Technical problems that I'm having.
Supervisor Zhang is saying that people that are participating by WebEx can hear the discussion. However, the supervisors here cannot.
Wonderful technology.
We have now we can hear you, Supervisor Beestrom. Go ahead.
All right.
So your wonderful technology comment came through loud and clear.
As I started off, I said I would agree with the chair in most everything that was said, especially regarding closed sessions. Serving also on the library board and the current events that are going on there, we did do our closed sessions in person, and another one again coming up on Monday. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. So I would definitely go along with that.
Thank you. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just encourage you to keep an open mind relative to how we allow participation in both the committee meetings and others. While we're encouraging members to attend in person, I know that from my own experience of working, having a job that took me out of town, the ability to participate remotely was critical to my ability to participate. And there just are times where, because of the daytime meeting, those people that are working struggle with needing to drop everything, run into the meeting, and then go back to work. And so I think we need to, if we're going to be serious about trying to recruit people, give them as many tools as possible to participate. And we are allowing the public to participate or to view us through the public access channel. And there's just one more opportunity to encourage people to participate. And we ought to encourage them to attend, but if they can't, we need to create options to allow their active involvement.
Okay, Supervisor Lamont, and then we have Supervisor Harris next.
I support what Supervisor Robinson just said. There's been times when I've been out of town and still I've been able to attend all the meetings, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Harris next.
I'd also echo Supervisor Robinson's comments. As one of those people that does work during the day, it's been incredibly helpful to, maybe be able to take my lunch in between meetings and attend other meetings and learn about other things that are going on in the county on the different committees. So I think for me, people that work, other people that live further out in terms of the committee meetings, I've heard from them as well that has been very helpful. I do agree with the closed sessions, that those we should be present for. I think as we start to get back to normal, meetings at night, because obviously they're pretty late, but it would be very helpful to keep in mind in terms of participation for people like myself and others who work during the day or who have to travel far distances for those committee meetings during the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Oberbeck next.
Thank you. I'd also like to call attention to the new variant that's out there with the Delta and Delta Plus, that we should be aware of that. Marathon County is still at 39.5% with 2 doses. And they're saying the Delta variant lowers your resistance to about 79%. So I think we should be aware of that and watch that during the next weeks, and then get some advice also from our health department as well as the state health department on where we look at or how far we should open everything up during this kind of uncertain time. So I would recommend that.
Okay, Supervisor Van Cray next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo what Robinson said about working people, but also I think those of us with children, especially those of us with new children who don't know what they're doing quite yet, really appreciate the flexibility. And this has been really nice. So thank you. And I hope that we can continue to be flexible to encourage working people, but also parents to serve on our boards.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
What's that?
For money.
For what?
Really.
She only owed me $15.
She says he's ordering some other kind of cat food from you.
Oh.
Some other food.
Some people have their mic open, just so you're aware. Any other discussion? Okay, we will move on, and we are down to resolutions. Item, excuse me, 9D, 9D1 from Environmental Resources Committee. Item 9D, 1A, approval of the Town of Wausau Local Zoning Ordinance Amendment, Resolution 37-21. Any discussion? Okay, moving on, we have item 9D2 from the Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee. Item 9D2A, approve the 2021 budget transfers for Marathon County Department of Appropriations, Resolution 38-21. Any discussion? Again, this will require a 2/3 majority vote. Somebody still has an open mic? Any discussion? Okay, moving on. Item 9D3 from the Executive Committee. Item 9D3A to
Can't hear
designate.
you on WebEx.
Chairman, you're on mute now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
sir.
Okay, thank you. From the Executive Committee, item 9D3A, to designate the Executive Committee of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors as the 2021 Redistricting Committee, Resolution 39-21. Any discussion? Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question regarding the resolution, but more broadly, the redistricting timeline. I'm just wondering, since this is an informational meeting, that maybe we can get an update on where that is at, because I understand it's going to be quite drawn out, and the process is, first, we have to wait for the raw numbers from the census, correct, to be reported out?
That is correct. Right now, the estimate is late August or September when the official data is received from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Okay, so that's step one. Step two is, I believe at this point in time, rather than having the localities, municipalities, counties do their redistricting, we have to wait on the state of Wisconsin. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
It isn't, okay.
That is not correct.
Because I thought that changed back in early 2000s.
No.
Okay, so we can do ours.
Correct.
What are the possibilities of the timeline being such that we will have different supervisory districts? Pretty low, I'm kind of guessing.
Right now, the timeline that was discussed, WCA has had several discussions about this, the process. And the process spells out that there's a 60-day period, and then an additional 60-day period, and then there's an additional 60-day period. So first is the information's received, and there's 60 days to draw up the tentative plan. Once the tentative plan is drawn up by the county, then that information is shared with the local municipalities. The municipalities have 60 days to respond to any comments or input on the district wards that are being proposed. Then that information is received, and then there's 60 days additional to have public hearings on those districts, and there's a Class 3 requirement for posting, and that requires a 3-week notice by statute. So the timing, if the information is received late August or September, will not allow those district maps to be redrawn and comply with the timeline that is needed to be able to have the redistrict maps for county supervisory and or local municipalities for the April 2022 election. There's a piece of legislation that is before the Senate and Assembly that would extend that time to allow the districts to be started as soon as that information is received from the U.S. Census Bureau, but it would delay the actual impact, or because individuals that are requesting to be on the ballot can take out nomination papers starting as early as December 1st. And so the districts have to be designed by that time to be able to take out nomination papers. And so what the proposed legislation that is being proposed would delay the effective date of the new districts to the 2024 election. And it would be only for this term. It does not have any impact on the federal redraws or the state redraws of those state assembly districts and or any other districts. Once the state and or feds draw their districts, there's an opportunity for the county to redraw their lines, but it's the requirement basically says that if we don't start that process by July 31st, or we don't have a law change, then every county would be in violation of the state statutes.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion?
Supervisor Bizzotto.
Supervisor Bizzotto, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Is the executive committee typically the body that does the redistricting? So is this the same as it's been in prior years?
Yes, it is. It has been consistent. The executive committee has at least for the last census, was the redistricting committee, understanding that any recommendation still has to come to this full board for approval of the recommendations that are set out.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs.
Any other discussion? Okay, we will move on to item 9D, 3B, a resolution to suspend Section 2.05, Parent 2 of the Marathon County General Code of Ordinances, the Marathon County Board Rule governing the Capital Improvement Program Committee for the remainder of 2021, Resolution 40-21. And Supervisor Robinson, the chair of the HR Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way of background, last budget, the HR Finance and Property Committee struggled mightily with what to do with the KIP recommendations. And I'm looking at Supervisor Butke, who's a former chair. We have an annual process where we review requests, and we kind of carve out rolling stock, and we give money to the Sheriff's Department, Parks Department, Highway Department for their equipment needs. We then carve out money for information technology, for our computers, for the hardware and software. And what we're finding more and more is that programs that we used to buy, we now lease, which changes them from capital to operational cost, which is an issue and concern that we have going forward. But then we have a ranking process that is in place, and that deals with other projects. And in the past, that ranking project has resulted in us deferring maintenance on a lot of facilities, including the library roof. So instead of being a couple $100,000 fix, it was a several $100,000 fix. We put together a work group of which Allison, Supervisor Leahy is chairing it, along with working with Supervisor Fisher and Chair Gibbs, along with our facilities staff, our finance staff, and others to develop a proposal on how we will deal with this in the future. But one of the concerns we had a capital improvement committee that looked at all the recommendations, and many of those people were scratching, what's our role in the process? Because there were times where we didn't look at them from the perspective of, they rank projects, but then we always brought some projects around the ranking system. So what we wanted to do is continue to have that work group work on recommendations, but then have the HR Finance and Property Committee assume the responsibility of that ranking while we for this year only, and we'll deal with it in the Rules Review Committee on how we will go forward. But we just didn't feel as if the Capital Improvement Committee added value, if you will, to the process. And rather than continue something that we struggled with mightily last year, we thought that this would be an approach while we look for a long-term fix.
Couple things I would add is even the CIP committee, former CIP committee chair, recognized the challenges. And one other note is that the CIP committee is a subgroup of the HR Finance Committee. So all we're doing is, or all the proposal is to suspend the rules, and the responsibilities that the CIP committee had would be a responsibility of the HR Finance Committee. Any other discussion? Okay, we are down to item number 10, and before we go there, I will remind all supervisors that our board rules state that under announcements and/or requests, that the limit is 30 seconds per our rule. And so I am going to remind everybody that please remind yourself that you've limited to 30 seconds. I will remind people at the 30-second period that their time has expired for announcements. So we move on to item number 10, announcements and/or requests. Supervisor Johnson.
I was upbraided, Mr. Chairman, for failing to mention in May that Marathon County, the city of Wausau, and the Wausau Curling Club hosted the national championships for the men's, women's, and mixed curling national champions. And those events were held over 3 weeks in May, and went off without a hitch, and a great job by bringing folks in and holding a real class event. Thank you.
Thank you. 29 seconds, perfect. Any other announcements and/or requests?
Supervisor Bizzotto.
Supervisor Bizzotto, go ahead.
I'd just like to say that this coming Saturday is June 19th, also known as Juneteenth or Freedom Day or Emancipation Day. It celebrates the end of chattel slavery in Texas, but is often celebrated more broadly in the U.S. There is the first regional celebration of that event this coming Saturday at Whitewater Music Hall from 1 to 8 p.m. So I'd encourage everybody to attend. There will be lots of festivities and food to celebrate the Juneteenth holiday. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements and/or requests? Okay, seeing none, we are down to item number 11. Supervisor Seefeld with the motion, Supervisor Butke with the second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And Juneteenth is now a national holiday. Yeah, I think so. Today.